My Weird School Days, Book Number 5. Officer Spense Makes No Sense. Written by Dan Gutman. Pictures by Jim Pelot. Chapter 4. True or False? Go first? Where? I didn't even know where I was going, but I sure didn't want to go there first. Officer Spense took me to room 104. That's Dr. Brad's room. He's our school counselor. He helps kids with their problems, but I don't have any problems, so I don't have to see him. Dr. Brad doesn't come to school every day because he works at a bunch of different schools, so his room was empty. Sit down, ordered Officer Spense. I sat on the only chair in the room. There were wires sticking out of it and leading to a scary-looking machine on the table. "Where's Mr. Klutz?" I asked. "What did you do with him?" "He's probably in the slammer by now," Officer Spense replied. Slammer? I never heard of a slammer. It sounded like some kind of a torture machine. "What's a slammer?" I asked. "He's in the pen," said Officer Spense. "How could Mr. Klutz fit inside a pen?" I asked. I didn't know what he was talking about. If Mr. Klutz was in a pen, it would have to be a really big pen. Where would the ink go? And how could anybody use a pen with the principal inside it? "Mr. Klutz is in stir," said Officer Spense. "He's in the big house, the cooler, the joint, the clink, the pokey, the hoosgow, the calaboose." "Huh? He's in jail," Officer Spense shouted. "Oh," I said, "why didn't you say so?" "Never mind about Klutz," Officer Spense told me. 10 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches have been stolen this month. There's a crime wave sweeping elementary school, and I'm going to put a stop to it once and for all." Officer Spense looked really mad. He turned on the desk lamp and pointed it at my face. Then he hooked up a bunch of those scary wires to my arms and my head. "What are you doing?" I asked. "This machine is a lie detector," Officer Spense told me. "If you tell a lie, it will make a beeping sound, so you'd better tell the truth if you know it's good for you. Okay, let's get started. What's your name?" "AJ." I looked at the lie detector to see if it would beep. It didn't. "Very good," said Officer Spense. "And what does AJ stand for?" "Arlo Jervis," I admitted. "That's right," Officer Spense said. "The lie detector didn't beep, so you must be telling the truth. Good boy. Do you like school, AJ?" "No," I said. "That's true also," he said. "Tell me, Arlo Jervis, is there anything you like about school?" "No," I said. "Beep! That's a lie," Officer Spense said. "You like something or somebody." "I do not," I said. "Beep! Liar!" shouted Officer Spense. "I bet you like Andrea, that girl in your class with the curly brown hair, right?" "I do not," I said. "Beep! You're lying." "I am not," I shouted. "I hate Andrea." "Beep! Liar!" shouted Officer Spense. "You're secretly in love with Andrea, aren't you?" "No." "Beep!" "Hey," I said, "what does any of this have to do with the stolen peanut peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Oh yeah, the sandwich, said Officer Spence. Did you steal it? No, I said. How could I steal it? It was my sandwich, and I didn't even get to eat it. Officer Spence was going to ask me another question, but you'll never believe who walked into the door at that moment. Nobody, because if you walked into a door, it would hurt. But you'll never believe who opened the door and walked into the room. It was Andrea, and right behind her were Emily, Ryan, and Michael. I'm on the Principal's Advisory Committee, said Andrea. It says right here in the elementary school handbook that you can't give lie detector tests to students without their parents' permission. Let me see that, Officer Spence demanded. Andrea handed him the elementary school handbook and showed him a page in it. See? She said. Fine, Officer Spence replied. I'll find another way to nab the peanut butter and jelly sandwich bandit. I've seen these criminals in action. They'll take anything that's not nailed down. So we should nail down our sandwiches? Asked Michael. If you nail down a sandwich, it would be hard to eat, said Ryan. You could eat around the nail, I pointed out. Quiet, barked Officer Spence. You kids think you're pretty smart, don't you? Do you think peanut butter and jelly sandwiches grow on trees? No, we all said. I tried to imagine a peanut butter and jelly sandwich growing on a tree. That would be cool. When you were hungry, you could just go outside and pick a sandwich. I hope they throw the book at you kids, Officer Spence muttered. Why would they throw a book at us? Asked Michael. Throwing a book might ruin the binding, said Emily. Mrs. Rupee, the librarian, says you shouldn't throw books. You should treat them with TLC. That stands for tender, loving care. Enough, yelled Officer Spence. When I'm through with you kids, they might give you the chair. Why would they give us a chair? I asked. So if you steal a sandwich, they give you a chair? Asked Ryan. That's weird. What if you have all the chairs you need? Asked Michael. I said that's enough, yelled Officer Spence. Oh, by the way, Andrea, ALoud Jervis here is in love with you. Ooh, everybody said. Is that true, ALoud? Asked Andrea, all smiley. I always thought you secretly liked me. I don't, I shouted. Beep, it is true, Andrea said. It is not, I yelled. Beep. Ooh, Ryan said. AJ and Andrea are in love. When are you gonna get married? Asked Michael. Never, I yelled. Beep. If those guys weren't my best friends, I would hate them. You kids are no help at all, Officer Spence shouted. Get out of here. Go back to class. I'll find the peanut butter and jelly bandit by myself. I'll tell you, Officer Spence makes no sense. Chapter 5, Na 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 Boo Boo. You know how your teacher says you have to read a chapter in a book before you can have fun, and you really don't want to? Well, read this chapter. Then go have fun and tell your teacher na-na-na-boo-boo. Chapter 6. Searching for Clues. When I got back to class, Mrs. Patty, our school secretary, made an announcement over the loudspeaker. "Attention, all teachers and students," Mrs. Patty said. "This will be a perfectly normal day at elementary school. Continue with your lessons as scheduled. Principal Spense is now in charge." "Principal Spense?" we all said. "He's taking over the school," whispered Ryan, who was sitting next to me. "He's crazy." Our teacher, Mr. Granite, had been talking about protecting the environment as usual. Mr. Granite is an alien. No, I really mean it. Mr. Granite is from another planet. It's called Etenerg, which is granite spelled backward. "Here's a little trick to save water," said Mr. Granite. "Put an empty bucket on the floor of your shower while you wait for the water to warm up. The bucket will catch some of the cold water. Then you can use it to water your plants." Mr. Granite is always giving us tips to save energy. But that's when something weird happened. A head appeared in the doorway. It was Officer Spence's head. He was crawling around on the ground, and he was looking through a magnifying glass. What are you doing, Officer Spense?" asked Mr. Granite. "Searching for clues," Officer Spense replied. "I'm trying to nab the peanut butter and jelly bandit." "But you already said the peanut butter and jelly bandit was Mr. Klutz," said Michael. "Klutz is just one suspect," Officer Spense said. "This could be a conspiracy." "I never heard that word before." "A conspiracy?" I asked. "What's that?" "A conspiracy is a secret agreement between two or more people to break the law," said Andrea, all proud of herself. "Could you possibly be any more boring?" I asked Andrea. "Little Miss I Know Everything keeps a dictionary on her desk to look up words. That way she can show everybody how smart she is." "Aha!" Officer Spense suddenly shouted. "I found a clue." "What is it?" Emily asked. "What did you find?" "A hair," said Officer Spense. "So?" we all asked. "This is proof that the peanut butter and jelly bandit has hair," Officer Spense announced. "Well, Mr. Klutz doesn't have any hair at all," Mr. Granite told him. "So he must be innocent, right?" "Yes, but you've got hair, don't you?" Officer Spense said, looking at Mr. Granite. "Well, yes, but I didn't steal." Mr. Granite didn't have the chance to finish his sentence because at that moment, Officer Spense jumped up and pointed his finger at him like it was a gun. "Freeze, dirtbag! You're under arrest." "That's not even a gun," said Mr. Granite. "Maybe I have a gun hidden inside my finger," said Officer Spense. "Hands up!" "What did I do?" Mr. Granite said, putting his hands up. "I don't even have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich." "No, but you're an illegal alien," shouted Officer Spense. "Well, that's true," admitted Mr. Granite as Officer Spense put handcuffs on him. "I am from the planet Etenerg." Are you going to send Mr. Granite to jail too? Asked Neil the nude kid. No, said Officer Spence. Whew, that's a relief, said Andrea. I don't need to send him to jail, Officer Spence told us. I brought the jail here. What? He went out in the hallway and came back in, wheeling a big cage. It was sort of like a portable jail. Wow, we all said, which is Mom upside down. Where did you get that? I asked. Rent a jail, said Officer Spence as he pushed Mr. Granite into the cell. You can rent anything. This is not fair. You can't do this, Mr. Granite protested. I have my rights. Yeah, you have the right to remain silent, said Officer Spence. So shut up. Help! Help! Shouted Mr. Granite as the jail cell was wheeled away. Let me out!